Now, when we're thinking about how we become effective and how we move away from having what's being talked about as technical compliance, so we've got papers, we've got policies, we've got procedures in place, so we've got the paper. But how do we move from a position of having the paper and making sure that that paper is effective and we are really making that difference that we just talked about? And so we have to then focus on areas of our paper policies and procedures to think about how they become effective. Are they working in practice? Are they hitting in the right places that when we wrote them, we thought they would be? And so I've split this out into three core areas, and we've recently seen one in particular of the accountancy supervisors do the same and give the same feedback in their report. So the first one I've picked out here is risk assessment, and then we've got identification and verification, and we'll touch on these as we move throughout the session today in a little bit more detail. But we've got risk assessment. That's really a cornerstone of AML compliance. If we don't get the risk assessment piece right from the outset of a relationship with a client, unfortunately, that can set us off on the wrong trajectory. It can mean that we don't have the right level of due diligence from point one, from the very start of that relationship. So making sure that from inception and throughout that we get it right. Risk assessment is so fundamental to that process. And so it's really important that we think about that in more detail. And then we've got identification. So that's making sure that you know who you're working with, you know the beneficial owners of that company, you understand that company and what its intricacies are, what is its business activities, and what countries is it touching? It might be incorporated here, but what operations has it got overseas, and what is the risk around those jurisdictions as well? Does it heighten the risk that you're seeing? And then we've got verification. And one thing that we often see, and from experience of auditing firms, is that a risk is identified in the risk assessment, but the verification that follows doesn't always align with the risk that was spotted. So the risk could be around jurisdiction, but the document I might have got an extra document for identity verification. So I would have got somebody's ID. And then you're thinking, does that add any comfort? Does that give me anything that I needed in order to make me feel more comfortable about the risk that I identified? So we must tailor our due diligence based upon the risks that we're seeing. And the whole ethos of the money laundering regulations is based upon a risk-based